we doing, everybody? Happy Tuesday here in the great state of Wisconsin or wherever you are listening. This is Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. I'm your host, Trage. Today we're getting back to normal. We spent an overstretched Monday. We got a little bit heated talking about the Badgers football loss against Iowa. We're gonna dial it back today. You gotta, after a loss like that on a Monday, you gotta overreact a little bit. You gotta blow up. So we're gonna call that overstretched Monday. We went a little bit overboard. We're gonna bring it back. We're gonna be looking at what Luke Fickell had to say after that game against Iowa. We're gonna dissect it a little bit. We're also going to be looking at the Packers coming off a bye week. We're gonna be talking about the Packers here. Doing a little, saw some interesting stuff. I want to do a little comparison of Jordan Love to Aaron Rodgers. So we're going to do that comparison today. Also go through the injury report because Monday was a big day for the Packers actually out on the practice field, seeing some guys get back into action. So that was some big news. Also going to be looking at the Badgers basketball. The red-white scrimmage was this last weekend. We're going to be covering that today. See some of the highlights from it, some of the stars and some things that stood out in that game and hopefully will lead to success here in this next season. But with that, right away, we are jumping into Badger football because we have Luke Fickell talked after the game, and we're going to go through it. So he started out opening statement of the press conference. He said they beat us in every phase of the game today. Well, Luke, we saw that too. Tonight, this afternoon, it's pretty obvious. Give them a lot of credit. And like I said yesterday, Iowa, they got outcoached by Iowa in that game. That he stated it. He told you I got outcoached in this one basically. But offensively, defensively, and particularly special teams, they made the plays when they needed to. Neither one of us, I think, could sustain much offensively. Well, yeah, that was like we talked about yesterday, ugly. And he stated it right there. But they make one huge play, and we have some opportunities with the ball tipped in the air, and we just don't come down to make the play. That makes it pretty even in some ways. Yeah, basically taking the words right out of our mouths as Badger fans there. He's telling us what we want to hear. He's a people guy. That's what we're hearing from this. He's a people guy who's giving the people their answer that they want to hear. The thought they dominated us special teams wise, their punt team flipped the field on every occasion. We had too many penalties that really made it difficult for us offensively. And I thought about that. And yesterday I talked about the struggle of Braden Locke. And I was the first on there to say we need to go even deeper on the bench and find somebody else. But you look at what happened in that one, and Braden Locke got thrown in the middle of the Badgers offense wasn't cooking. And Luke Fickell goes on to talk about this later on in the interview, or in the press conference. But the offensive for the Badgers wasn't clicking with Tanner Mordecai when he was in there or when he got hurt. It wasn't clicking. The defense was holding their own, and there was nothing going for Wisconsin, nothing in the right direction. So now Braden Locke gets thrown into that, and he has to try and figure it out. First game out, he needs to try and figure out how to start the offense. People don't realize how hard that is for a freshman in college. And I didn't think about it either. Like I said, we were an overstretched Monday yesterday. We were jumping through the roof, talking about everything that went wrong. I dialed it back, really thought about it. This Wisconsin team, Locke was dealt a bad hand. For a first game out, that was a bad hand. Tanner Mordecai had him in a mess. And by a mess, I mean nothing was cooking on the offensive side. You expect it from your quarterback to be able to pull yourselves out of that, be able to make a throw, be able to, or even a guy like Braylon Allen, if you can get him involved, to be able to break them out of that slump. And nothing was going right. Now, Braden Locke gets thrown in there. And you look at how many penalties happened on special teams. We talked about that yesterday. There was 3 of them, I believe, 3 or 4 on special teams alone. Moving him back to his back is in the end zone every single time. And when you have your back to the end zone as a freshman quarterback coming in, this is your first game, first outing, first time seeing it, your offense is already struggling. Now you have to try and dig yourself out of that hole. Mistakes are going to happen even more in that situation. When there's nothing cooking, a backup quarterback coming into that is going to make matters worse. And that's what it did. That's what it did in that game. Braden Locke, I didn't give him the benefit of the doubt. I really did. I was, watching him play, I was like, got to go check his pants for some brown stains down there because it looked rough. It looked like he wasn't ready. And part of me said he wasn't. He was not ready for that moment. But in that moment, that was a tough moment to be thrown in. I don't care who you are. Unless if you have a dynamic offensive line and your run game's going and your wide receivers are cooking, it's going to be a tough spot to be thrown in as Braden Locke. So, with Mordecai now reported, he broke his hand. So, he had a pin put in it on Sunday. He had surgery on it. There's no timetable for that return. So, it's Braden Locke's. He's got the keys to the castle now. He's got the keys to that lock. That was good. See, right there. That puns are not my thing. But he has the keys to the castle now. And Braden Locke needs to figure out something with this offense. They need to figure out how to work to his strengths. We knew that he wasn't a mobile quarterback. That's what everybody knew that. So we need to work to those strengths. It's going to change what the offense has been doing this year, especially with Tanner Mordecai, resulting in a lot of rush yards and rushing touchdowns for this Badger team. He doesn't have a boatload, but he still can get out of the pocket and move. It changes the offense. So now Phil Longo, Luke Fickell, they need to sit down and they need to figure out, okay, now we have to create this dairy raid, air raid offense. Now with a not so mobile quarterback, we need to be able to protect him. We need to be able to run routes that are going to be effective to his game because he's not going to be able to move around in the pocket like we want, be able to throw that ball on the run. We haven't seen that yet out of Braden Locke. So does that mean short, methodical offense? Does that mean trying to hit maybe a quick slant, maybe some quick hitches, anything like that? Anything moving towards the middle of the field, trying to run some crossing patterns to get guys open? Maybe a little bit more in the screen game. Or you dial it even farther back and you roll into maybe a little bit more run game. You try to incorporate more of, and I know people are going to hate it, go back to what Paul Chryst was doing with Wisconsin and incorporate in the run more often than the pass. You're still going to have the pass game in your back pocket. You still have dynamic wide receivers. Braden Locke, we know he can sling it. We know he can sling the football. Maybe take the pressure off him by putting more of the pressure on Braylon Allen and Aker. I think Aker needs to be used more. Put the pressure on those guys to be able to contribute into this offense, be able to get you that 3rd and 3 so that Braden Locke isn't trying to gain 10 yards on 3rd down. Now he's set up in a 3rd and 3. A dump off pass can get him that 1st down, a short hitch, a slant route, anything short can get him that 1st down. I think the Badgers from here on out, a key to their success is going to be able to, can we get the run game going on 1st and 2nd down? Set us up in those short yardage situations where even on a 3rd and 2, we can go back to Braylon Allen for that 1st down. We don't have to always rely on the pass game. We saw that a lot with Paul Chryst, and a lot of people hated the way he ran offense, the way he ran the offense. And it was a different style. It was a ground and pound. We were going to continuously run it at you until you were sick of it or you stopped us. And when you stopped us, you usually ended up loading up the box, and then that was the ball game right there. Maybe complementary football is going to be key, but a little bit more keen on the run game. You have a star in the backfield in Braylon Allen. I think Aker could be a dynamic piece in that backfield along with Braylon Allen. Utilize your strengths, what you have. Braden Locke may not be the most confident quarterback yet. Give him confidence by getting the run game going first, then go back to it. But Luke Fickell, he went on to talk about Tanner Mordecai. We already know about that, broken hand, everything like that. He went on to say the question of this one was the offense was struggling before Tanner got hurt. Iowa certainly has a sound defense. Do you feel like your offense is still trying to find what its identity should be? He went on to say, no, I don't think they're trying to find what their identity needs to be. I think we're trying to find how it fits with the people we have as much as anything. But we got to do a better job. I told them in the locker room. I told them first and foremost, they did a better job coaching than we did today. Yeah, that's what we said. On the first one, right, when you look at the whole field position battle, the things you need to do to win the game like this, a rivalry game, I can honestly tell you our guys respected the heck out of it, prepared, I thought, as good as we have this entire season. You got out-coached in this one. You didn't make the right moves when you had to make the right moves. You didn't call the right things when you had to call the right things. And that's what he's saying here in there is that this team seemed to be, they were prepared. They were ready to go. But when they went out there, it didn't go. They got the car. They put the wheels on. They got the engine in. They turned the key. Didn't start. That's what this game was right here. They prepared for Iowa the way that you would prepare for Iowa. You knew it was going to be ugly. You knew they couldn't score the ball efficiently. You knew this was going to be a low scoring affair. And going into this one, you didn't play up to that. You tried to play different levels of football. That's why yesterday when I said Paul Chryst wouldn't have lost this game, I don't think he would have. In the simple fact of Paul Chryst, as we know, would have played the ground game like it was going out of style. And I think the Badgers' best bet in this season, we know the guys that they have. The most dynamic guy on their offense is Braylon Allen. You have some dynamic wide receivers. I won't deny that. Bryson Green, heck of a receiver. Will Pauling, Shimmery, DK, Williams, all great receivers. But Braylon Allen is the star of that Wisconsin offense. He's the guy everybody talks about. When you can get Braylon Allen going, the offense goes with him. That's what they lacked in this one. They could not get Braylon Allen going. Was that because of injury? I thought he got injured at the end. It looked like it. It looked like he was slowing down, wasn't quite getting any kind of acceleration at all. That contributed to it, but I really do think going forward, the key is going to be in Braylon Allen's hand. Can he get going? And that's going to lead this Wisconsin offense the rest of the way. Looking at, like Luke Fickell said, how would you evaluate Braden Locke play today? He said, we'll go back and watch. It was a tough situation. Like I was talking about, it wasn't like we were moving the football. We didn't have anything really established. Whether it was the run game or making some plays on the outside, it was a battle, hard fought. Gets thrown in a situation like that makes it very, very difficult. I thought they did a great job at pressuring, keep us off balance, and I think we got to do a better job protection-wise to give our quarterback a better chance. We've talked about it all season. The offensive line for Wisconsin has been struggling. And, people keep saying these were Paul Chryst guys. These weren't Luke Fickell's guys. These were Paul Chryst guys. Okay, if the offensive line is Paul Chryst guys, guess what? Paul Chryst's offensive line was pretty darn good. Those were a lot of them have gone on to play in the NFL. They've been some great offensive lines who have constantly pushed the run game down the field when they needed to in ball games. So if this is Paul Chryst's offensive line, whatever they did in that offensive room has screwed with them, because this doesn't look like a great offensive line to me. This looks like a subpar offensive line who's getting beat up by some subpar defenses. Iowa's defense is good. Iowa's defense is good. But Buffalo pushed them. Washington State pushed this offensive line. They've played some games. Washington State's not a terrible team. Buffalo's a team that you should have beat handily. And I thought they were in the backfield a lot against Wisconsin. I thought there has been a lot of times this season where the offensive line does not look great. And we saw that in this one. So moving forward, I think they do need to find, if it's not currently on the offensive line, they need to find somebody, a second stringer, somebody that's going to mesh with the rest of these guys, that's going to protect Braden Locke the rest of the way, protect Matt Tanner Mordecai if he comes back, or whoever is in there at the quarterback spot, and also get a push for when Braylon Allen is running the ball. Get him a hole to run through and just let him work, because that is going to be the key to success with this Badger team. Fickell went on to say the question was, obviously did a good job defensively on third down. Were there some instances where your receivers didn't get to the sticks on their route? And Fickell said, I don't know. I mean, there was a few of those situations which puts us in tough calls there going for it. I know everybody will ask about the first series of the game. We go for it and get stopped. Had you known it was going to be as tight as it was going to be, maybe you do things differently. But the reality is kicking field goals is not going to win football games. That's the difference. They got a safety and things like that. They got one big play that leads to a touchdown. That's as much as anything the difference in the game. If we find a way to get them down at the 10-yard line, whatever, who knows what happens. Like last week, I think there's a lot of things like that, whether it's first down, third down, whatever those situations are, we got to figure it out. That's on you. That is on you, Luke Fickell, to figure out. And yeah, the Badgers did a great job defensively on third down. But that fourth down there early in that one, you see NFL teams kick the field goal. I mean, did you really think, okay, being as smart as a football coach as you are, and everybody likes to say how great you were. You took Cincinnati to the Final Four. You didn't really play anybody that season, but you took them to the Final Four. So now you're telling me that all the film you watched on Iowa, You thought this was going to be a shootout. You thought you needed a touchdown right there. You couldn't settle for a field goal because you didn't know what kind of game you were in for. You thought Iowa, the team that's going to run the ball over 70% of the time, their wide receivers have barely any receptions on the year. Their quarterback, Deacon Hill, threw for 30-some yards in this game. You didn't know that right at that moment. But looking at his stats throughout the season, they do not sling the ball around. So knowing all that, you prepared for this game. You thought you were going to be in a shootout with Iowa. That baffles me because leading up into this game, I could have told you this was going to be a dogfight. It always is a dogfight. It doesn't matter if Iowa's fantastic and Wisconsin's terrible. If Wisconsin's fantastic and Iowa's terrible, they're going to play a dogfight of a game, a defensive battle on the football field. And yet Luke Fickell, he comes out and he says this. He says that you didn't know. You didn't know what kind of game you were going to be in there. In a game, we've seen it. Wisconsin, Iowa. Wisconsin's a defensive, through the years, defense. Iowa, defense. We're going to have a dogfight on the field. We know this. This is the rivalry. This is the game. Points are hard to come by in the Big Ten in general. They're hard to come by. Unless if you're Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State even, they're hard to come by. You come play in the West, it's defense. That's what wins you games. So in this one, in that spot, I tell you what, I understand you don't know what kind of game it's going to be, but if I'm playing the odds game, it's going to be a dogfight, a shootout, or not a shootout. It's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be who can have the ball the longest and who can put a couple scores up on the board. You take points right there. That's my honest opinion on that. You take points right there. You don't try for that 4th and 1. As much as I love the idea of getting behind Braylon or getting behind the blockers and running it with Braylon out the middle, I wouldn't take the chance. I'd kick the field goal. I'd take the points. I'd walk with it. You're up 3-0 now. Okay, that's a good start. Now you let your defense do the work. That's where I'm at on that situation. Simple as that. You drove. You got a 4th down. You went for it. You didn't get it. That's where the game went. Game changes with that field goal right there. I really do think it does. So that's my opinion on it. But moving on, when you said that you're still trying to find how your identity fits your players, is that because of injury? And Luke Fickell went on to say, I think in some ways, I think the limitations we've had at the tight end position because of injuries as well. So all those things fitting into what you're doing. Then I think maybe they didn't recognize how stout this defense really was, how much they can limit you a lot of things that you do. You give them a lot of credit. They lost 2 first-round picks from last year's defense. I don't know that they have taken much of a step backwards. There's a lot of credit to be given to them that forced us into situations we had tonight, especially on 3rd down. 3rd down, a lot of your 3rd downs in big spots, penalties killed you. There's a couple of different instances where you had short yardage and penalties knocked you back. There was also the fact that you're setting yourself up 3rd and 10 because you cannot move the ball on 1st down. 1st downs are a big struggle for Wisconsin. Early down situations have constantly killed this team throughout the season. They need to be able to move the ball 1st down, 2nd down, set up short yardage on 3rd down, and that will continuously move the ball. You can't set yourself up 3rd and 7 every single drive and expect to come out with a 1st down every single time. That's where Wisconsin is getting killed right now. And Luke Fickell went on to continue into this, but we're going to be done with that right there. I just wanted to cover a little bit of what he talked about there and just kind of dissect it and see what he was trying to say with that. But with that, we're going to jump over into the Packers right now because the Packers had some good news come out of Monday, some not so good news, but some good news. So 2 guys not in practice, 2 starters, Devondre Campbell and Quay Walker, were both did not practice on Monday. So we expected Quay Walker might be out for a little bit. I don't know the extent of that injury right now. Devondre Campbell, he's missed the last 2 games with an ankle injury. Hopefully see him back pretty soon here in the Packers lineup. They were on the field, though, doing separate rehab workouts with trainers. So good to see them back out on the field there. Hopefully see them back into the lineup for the Packers here at some point. Darnell Savage did return to practice. He missed the second half against the Raiders. Returned to practice on Monday. Looking at it, it looks like after Matt LaFleur did say he was hopeful to have Walker and Savage available for Sunday against the Broncos, but he's very cautious with optimism about Campbell being back this week too. So it looks like Campbell might not make it back, but possibly getting Walker back. Looks like Savage returned to practice. I would expect to see Savage. I don't know about Walker yet. And Campbell, he is percentage-wise, I'd say about 10%. Also back on the practice field was safety Zane Anderson. He was back. He missed the last 3 games with a hamstring injury. And big news was Aaron Jones returning to practice on Monday. Suffered a hamstring injury in the third quarter against the Bears. Missed week 2 at Atlanta and the week 3 over the Saints. But he did come back for week 4 against Detroit. Sat out again. Now he's back. Hopefully Aaron Jones is here to stay because I think Aaron Jones, honestly, losing him has been a killer for the Packers so far this season. So hopefully getting Aaron Jones back adds a little bit more stability on that offense and gives them a little bit more going forward here. But with that, I want to look at, and I heard a lot of people talking about it, and I wanted to get into it because they were talking about Jordan Love compared to Aaron Rodgers. And they said, well, Rodgers wasn't very good through the first 5. What do we expect out of Jordan Love? So I want to compare the two. We look at Jordan Love through week 5 here. Week 1 at Chicago was a win. 15 for 27, 245 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, a 123 rating. Week 2 at Atlanta, 14 for 25, 151 on the yardage, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions in that one. Looking at his week 3 against New Orleans, that was a win. 22 for 44, 259, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Looking at the loss in week 4, 23 for 36, 246 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Looking at that week 5, 16 for 30, 182 yards, no touchdowns, and 3 interceptions against the Raiders. That is a total of 90 for 162 passing, about 55%. 1,083 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Okay? So now we go and we're going to go look at Aaron Rodgers' stats here. Aaron Rodgers threw his first game against Minnesota, 18 for 22, 178 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. In a week 2 win against Detroit, he was 24 for 38, 328 yards, 3 touchdowns. Looking at his week 3 against Dallas, 22 for 39, 290 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Week 4 in a loss at Tampa, 14 for 27, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Looking at week 5 against Atlanta in that season, 25 of 37, 313 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception in a loss there. So you compare the two. You look at those two guys. Rodgers in that season, 103 for 163, 63% passing, 1,274 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. You look at the difference between the two. Aaron Rodgers had his struggles early on in his career. Early on in that season, he had some struggles. In that season, though, led multiple comebacks or game winner or comeback wins in that season. Jordan Love hasn't been able to prove that he's able to do that for the Packer team yet. Jordan Love has been struggling to throw a consistent football. Now, you look at what Aaron Rodgers had, and you look at what Jordan Love is working with. A little bit older, veterans on that Packer team with Aaron Rodgers. You go back to now, a lot of rookies trying to figure stuff out. That weighs into it. And we talked about, do the Packers need a veteran wide receiver in that locker room? Maybe somebody to add some stability in there, somebody to calm it down. I don't think Christian Watson's the number 1 wide receiver. I don't think he can be a 1 on a football team. Too many drops. Too much inconsistency. I don't think he can be your 1. I don't think Romeo Doubs can be a number 1. I think Romeo Doubs is a great number 2. I think Christian Watson could be a number 2 or a number 3 receiver, a speed threat on the football field. But I don't think he's a number 1. Reed, I thought he's played pretty darn good in his rookie season so far. I thought he's been a highlight for this Packers team. Luke Musgrave, I don't think the full boat is out on him yet, but I think he's going to be a great tight end for the Packers here in the future. A bunch of other guys fitting in with the Packers on the wide receiver front, but I still think you're missing that number 1. I think you're missing that dominant guy, that one guy that you can go to when you need it. You look at the Packers teams of the past: Devontae, Jordy, back then you had everybody was a wide receiver. Greg Jennings and Donald Driver and everybody in between. You had multiple weapons on that offense. But you've always had that guy, the one guy that, Aaron Rodgers trusted. Brett Favre trusted. I mean, he just tried to throw it through him anyways. But Jordan Love has not found that guy. He's slinging the ball around. I think he's sharing it, or trying to share the wealth as much or a little bit more than what Aaron Rodgers did later on. I thought Aaron Rodgers was kind of becoming one-dimensional. He's going to throw to this guy in a pressure spot. And sometimes that's what you got to do. But I think the Packers are lacking that number 1 wide receiver right now. I think they're working with a bunch of good wide receivers, a bunch of number 2 wide receivers. Maybe they can develop into number 1s. I'm not the case isn't closed on Romeo Doubs. I think he has potential to be a great wide receiver. I really do. Christian Watson, though, he's injury prone, loves to drop the football. I just don't trust him. I really don't. We've had him for last year. He got a little bit better down the stretch. Got injured a lot. I mean, he seems like if he gets hit once, it's like a piece of paper getting thrown into a fire. I mean, it's going to crumble. And we've seen that with Christian Watson now. So, do we expect the Packers to be able to pick the pieces up? I think you got to wait with this Packers team. I really do. We're in through 5 weeks right now. We have the Broncos coming up. You look down the schedule here at the Packers, and you have the Broncos coming up this week, followed up by the Vikings, then the Rams, Steelers, then Chargers. Week 10, you have the Chargers. I think for this Packers team to come full fold, I think you have to wait until then. Because if I look at this schedule and I see the teams on it, I'm going to tell you that the Broncos are a struggling team right now. Okay? Does that realistically tell me that the Packers have a over 50% shot to beat them? I don't think so. I really don't. Looking at the Vikings game next, the Vikings have been stumbling all season long. Justin Jefferson won't be out there. Do I think the Packers have a realistic shot of beating them? Yeah. But would I bet my life on it? No, I would not. Going against the Steelers, do I believe the Packers could win that game? Yeah, I do. Steelers aren't that great of a team. They have a good defense. They do have a good defense. Kenny Pickett's starting to play a little bit better. George Pickens is a dynamic wide receiver. But I think the Packers could beat the Steelers. I think they could. Chargers, same thing. I think they could beat them. But I look down that schedule and I can't tell you a team on there that they can definitely beat. So these games here, this stretch, this 5-game stretch, you have the Rams in there too. This 5-game stretch, I think, is going to tell us a lot about the Packers. I think it's going to tell us if this team's got it or if they might need to retool the shed. Because you play the Broncos and the Vikings back-to-back, 2 teams that are struggling. Then you have the Rams. The Rams, still there. They still have a pretty good team. Then the Steelers, you're going to play pretty good defense. Pretty good head coach over there who knows how to win. And then the Chargers. After that, you have the Lions and the Chiefs. So you have a date with the Lions one more time on Thanksgiving. And then you have to play the Kansas City Chiefs. If it isn't written on the Packers by that Lions game, there's not going to be much left to figure out. Because you're going to have 2 weeks of struggling football there with the Lions and the Chiefs. That's where I'm at with this Packers team right now. We go week by week. We watch the struggle. I think we have to see what this really turns into come about week 10. I think that's about a good cutoff for this Packers team to see what the move has got to be going forward here. And if they have to look to, like I said, retooling the shed, getting this team back afloat for next year. That's where I'm at with this Packers team right now. But with that, I want to jump over into the Badgers. Looking at the red-white scrimmage, the white defeated the red 69-51. For the white, AJ Starr led the way. He had 15 points, 6 for 13 from the field in that one. But the star, true freshman forward Nolan Winter. Winter played great in this scrimmage game here. 5 for 8 from the floor, 2 for 4 from downtown, had a double-double, 13 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 blocks. Max Klesmet was also in double figures for him. 13 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. They said it looked like in this one, Max Klesmet coming into his own. He looked like he was settled down. He was relaxed. He seemed like he was more a part of it this year, more of a leader out there for this Badgers team. And that's what, Max showed it at times last year, but he also looked a little shaky at times. I think if you get a calm Max Klesmet, a guy who he's got his eyes set on the prize, I think that's what you want to see with Max Klesmet moving in this next season. So that was great to see in this one. Senior forward Tyler Wall, he led the way for red in this one. 16 points, 7 for 11 from the field. He also came up with 4 rebounds and 2 assists. Both teams shot about 40% from the field, including 50% from the white. Each side only committed 8 turnovers in a 40-minute running clock game. Greg Gard, after it, came out and he said, "It's good for our guys. I was happy for a good crowd. As I do every year, I go around to tell all the young guys in the locker room and say, hey, are you nervous? All knows. Maybe they weren't telling me the truth, but just an opportunity to play. We haven't done a ton of up and down. I was one of a cleaner, 8 turnover a piece for the pace we've tried to play at. We have a lot to get better at, no doubt, but I like where we're at right now. There's enough good things, but there's enough things on film that will help us push forward." In this one, we saw a full display of what the Badgers are going to have this year. And AJ Starr was impressive. The speed that he showed out there on the court, I thought, the speed, the athleticism. You look at that early on, there was a steal by McGee, took it down, tossed it up behind his head. It kind of made you remember that D Wade to LeBron alley-oop. That was cool to see. Just the athleticism that the Badgers are getting this season with AJ Starr coming in. Also, Gus Yeldon, Gus Bus, he played physical for this Badgers team. He was right up there with Steven Crowell in this one. He was banging bodies with him. He wasn't backing down. And to see Nolan Winter, out of all the freshmen, I thought I would see a little bit more out of Gus. I didn't think that Nolan Winter would be the star, but Nolan Winter played great in this one. And I think that's going to show a lot of the depth of what Wisconsin is going to have here in this next season. The Badgers are deep on the bench, going with Ilvers. Ilvers played pretty good in this one. Also having guys, you don't know who's going to be in that starting role yet. You got Chucky, you got Tyler Wall, you got Steven Crowell. I would assume Max Klesmet. Do you start AJ Starr? Do you start Connor Essegian? You have choices, and that's great. That's great to see that you have choices. You start Connor, you have AJ Starr coming off the bench, along with McGee, and now you have Carter Gilmore in this game. Showed a lot more with his jump shot. I thought watching the highlights from this one, looks more poised, looks like more of an offensive threat in this one. AJ Starr showing a lot of offensive threat from inside the paint, from the mid-range, and also from downtown. It was great, like I said, to see Ilvers hitting it from downtown. This Badgers team is deep. You have Winter coming off the bench, Gus coming off the bench, Chris Hodges, Carter Gilmore. This bench is deep. And that's what I think the Badgers lacked last year, was when they got into foul trouble, anybody got into foul trouble from that starting 5, they ran into a problem because there wasn't scorers behind them on the bench. Now, with these returning guys, and I almost missed them, Isaac Lindsley also in there for the Badgers. You have a ton of options here in this season for the Badgers. I am excited. I am through the roof to see what the Badgers will have out on the court there for this opening tip-off. Also, it was reported, if I can find it here, that the Badgers, according to a source, Greg Gard and the Badgers have added a preseason matchup to the calendar. It looks like it's not really a secret anymore. They call it a secret scrimmage, but it's not really a secret if the source leaked it to everybody. Against Northern Iowa, that'll take place next Saturday. So this upcoming Saturday, before playing an exhibition matchup against Stevens Point. It said this will serve as a final tune-up before the Badgers officially tip off their season against Arkansas State on November 6th. So, interesting news there. I don't know. It didn't really say if stats are going to be provided or if we're going to see anything out of that or hear anything out of that. But good to see that the Badgers are going to get another scrimmage game in there, and they're going to get a little bit more momentum going into this next season. Get a little bit more time there out on the court to mesh and fully watch this team develop here heading towards the season. But that is about all I have for Wisconsin sports for the day. I just want to check out the MLB playoffs quick. Last night, the Rangers. I tell you what, yesterday I called the Astros winning this series. I don't know anymore because the Rangers just took a 2-0 lead in the series, won 5-4. A big 4-run first inning for the Rangers was the difference in this one. Phillies beat the Diamondbacks, took a 1-0 lead in that series. Phillies 5-3. They took that win over the Diamondbacks. Gallen took the loss. Zach Wheeler pitched a pretty good game for the Phillies in that one, and Kimbrel got the save. So, leading up into tonight here, the NLCS will be the only game on the ALCS has got a day off as they move locations. It'll be Merrill Kelly against Aaron Nola. That is a 7:07 start there. I believe that one is in Philly. But with that, that is about, that's in Philly. So 7:07 first pitch from Philly. That game will be on TBS. But with that, that is about all I have for Wisconsin sports for the day. This has been Wisconsin Sports on the Go with Trage. Thank you guys for listening. Deuces.